Okay, so let me share. Hello again, it's Sam Talks, and we're going to cover in this call uh, roles and responsibilities of SAM leads. So a SAM lead is a user that has access to your system that is given a full administrator permission. And it comes with a lot of responsibility for assisting your other users with the system and record management as well. So I'll start off with some of the easier tasks and things that need to be done, and then we will go into some of the more complicated things, talking about some of the tools and reporting, and then how to get support is what we'll really cover. So I'm going to jump into SAM. Just make sure everybody understands what a user is, because there actually are a lot of categories, I guess, for users. So what users are, how you add them, how you manage them, and how you disable users, and what you can and can't do with disabling users once people are actively using the system. So in our guides, we talk about two primary types of users. Maybe I'll say three. There are the SAM leads. SAM leads are generally given access, or are given access by our team, the first 1 or 2 people when a new client site is set up. We give that initial access, and they are given a permission that allows them to be a full administrator. So they have access to see every single record in the site. They see all the tools, and their responsibilities, what we're going to talk about today, are administering those tools or implementing those tools within your program and your programs into SAM. So it's, a relationship that works together. There is users, general users of the system. These are your staff members, or maybe folks that you contract with. It may be like a board member that literally has access when I log out, that is going to log into the front door of SAM. So your general login screen, they are people who have access into this. These are the people who get charged. So you're charged for, or your pricing relates to how many users you have between SAM leads and people who can access your site through this door. We also talk about end users. End users are your clients. Generally, it's a family-based clientele. Some agencies, depending on their programs, might have kids logging in. If they're working with older youth, that feels appropriate. You might also have end users like foster care county staff that refer children to your organization. You might have end users that are volunteers, donors. If you're using those tools, would be considered an end user. They log in if you have these forms implemented. They log in into public forms. So you may public forms are found under settings, and then the forms link, and then there is a filter where you can look at public forms. So forms is here, and then this filter here, if I look at public forms, these are all of your enabled public forms. And you can have any number of these. I've got David is on with All God's Children. I think you guys use one public form that end users do not have to log into. Pam, I can't remember with Adoption Center of Illinois. I think your families log into a checklist. And so they actually have to log in. And then Liana at Nightlight, they've got hundreds of public forms that families are accessing through the checklist or maybe from templates, but so many public forms. So it'll vary on how you customize your site. But these public forms, let's see, I think this one has a login setting where the login screen is similar. We did it on purpose to make it feel Well, I guess it actually depends on the login option that's here as to how similar it feels to the front door login screen. This is like logging into the back side of SAM. These are public forums where you are offering the end user just what you want, and they can log in, or they can, in this case, start the form without logging in. Okay, but most forms, most public forms that you'll have for end users are going to be, should be login required, in my opinion. Only inquiry forms, general contact us forms will you really allow families or end users to just enter data. Maybe a volunteer application totally could, things like that. And I've seen public forms be used for employee applications, volunteer applications, like I said, things that are not necessarily directly related to foster care or adoption. Okay, so those are your different types of users. As a SAM lead, you are responsible for helping these users get into SAM. We've tried to make it easy. We always find different external systems work differently. So trying to keep up with any kind of technical things. If you have difficulty with it, let us know. But they should be able to, it should be mostly self-serve for them. And then if they have difficulty, because people always do, it really is a role for SAM lead to be the first point of contact. If you guys struggle with it, definitely talk to us. We'll help you navigate that as best we can. So those are your types of users. If you are adding a new user to the site, you're going to go in and add a person record. Put in their name, and then I like to always really set out a person type. So saying who this person is, or that, where is the employee staff? There it is, right? That field, setting them up. Adding a work email here will do you double duty when you actually give the user a login. So what was this? test@inreachsolutions.com. And then save. So having a person record is the first thing you need to do to add a user. And then you will apply login credentials to them and a permission type. So that is here on, once you found their person record, edit login permissions, you will enable their login, set a permission type. You can give them a different report menu that is going to just pull in some reports that you've designed. This is a set of reports that will be helpful for that role. You also don't have to, and they can come up with whatever they want. It's funny. I thought that this would pre-fill, but it may be my last pass settings in here. It's not going to help anymore, but putting in their work email or the email address that they will use to get the MFA or the multi-factor authentication code, and then set them up with a login or a username. When you do this, these steps, you will then on save, that user is going to get an email. Oh, okay. So test user 10. I think this has all been completely resolved, but usernames need to be whatever this says here, at least 8 characters. There cannot be any space. You can use email addresses. So if you want to find a pattern that works for all of your teammates of like first initial, last name, for all name, whatever, you can do it. It cannot have any spaces in there. But that's the only kind of new thing that's come out in the last month or so. That user is now going to receive an email at that email address that we just input that will provide them a link to start the login, to set their password and log into the site. Should you need to manage the user's permission in any way or disable the user, you will always return to their person record, edit login, disable access, or change the permission type to something else. So you can create lots of different permission types. If you give full admin is one that cannot be adjusted, and it is setting up somebody to be a SAM lead. There is no variation to full admin. It is, they see everything, can do everything. So you want to be conscious when you're or mindful when you're giving that access to people. There's definitely been times when it's just really like there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and people's administrative actions are overriding or interfering with other people's. So a few cooks, really helpful. Too many cooks, you're stepping on each other's toes. So just being again mindful of how many people. Once you're over 3 SAM leads, there are additional charges to those users. So you'll want to be considerate of that as well for your budget. Under settings, the last thing I'll talk about before I leave just the concept of managing users is the security center. When you pop into this section of the system, it's going to show you all your users that have access to the site. It gives some information around their last login, last time their password was updated, their permission type here. So you can get a quick glance at what's going on, right? So like if you decided, you're doing some security work and you guys wanted to have passwords be updated every 30 days or 90 days or something like that, this is a great way to just kind of quick poke and see. I believe all of this is pullable on reports, so you could have a filtered report on that information as well. But to see what's going on, I also sometimes come in to sites and see clients are paying for users that do not have, the person is never actually logged into the site, or what is their password last login, or their last login is, in this, David's not been in here for 6 months. So we could consider, do we actually does he still need to have access to the site? In our world, yes, David still needs access to the site, but just doesn't go into this one very often. From here, you can access that person's records. So the security center can be a spot for you to hop in on. I believe if you click details, it's going to take you, this is taking you here to the edit login screen. So you can get right there. And if you clicked on David's name, it's going to take you to his person record. And then you could go to edit login or do whatever other things you wanted to administer on the site. Before I leave, just basic user management. I think the 3 of you guys on here understand how to do that, but do you have any questions with that or any challenges in that respect at all? No. All right. Then other things that you're responsible for are setting up kind of just general system settings. Some of the simpler things or security-wise things are under the system configuration. Everybody here has been using SAM for many years. So I'm trying to think if I think it was in December of 2023 where we enabled MFA in the site. And you can change, it's not actually here. Things that are here, I'll go back to that, but things that are here is your organization name. This recently came up where somebody's going more with their acronym rather than the entire name labeled out. There's a couple of things, the password reset emails that come. If an end user is requesting a password reset, it'll say, what does it say? I think it says password reset from organization name or organization name password reset request, something like that. But this organization name is pulled in the subject line, so you can change it. As you see, we've done here. And on receipts, when you're emailing a receipt, I believe the subject line says Nightlight Christian Adoptions invoice. something like that is what it will have as the organization name that's posted here. So that can be done here. Setting your default time zone, that is done here. If you use checklists and you use the function that says do this in business days rather than just 5 days from now, it is 5 business days from now, you might want to play with your holidays and days off. So you can say we're always off on Fridays, so we don't have, that's not a business day for us. Or you guys have a lot of different holidays that maybe aren't a standard national holiday. You could add those in here as well. This is where you upload your logo, and communication filters are the filters on bulk emails. I think it's actually even when you are sending an email direct, like a template direct from a client record, where I'll go into the family and you can say, I never want to accidentally email clients who have opt out of emails selected. If they've clicked that button at some point in the past, we don't want to send a bulk email out to those folks. So it will automatically eliminate or exclude those records from being in here, right? That's spelled wrong, which we're working on our messaging, but yeah, so anything of like if somebody's opted out. There are a couple of fields that come in the system by default, but I have seen over the last 2 decades a couple, like people just change up their options or the types of fields that are used because they don't like what it was called, or for whatever reason, you just create other ways of opting out. And so you can put those in, and you've got them for all entity types. And I know I didn't click here because there's a lot to cover, but it's just adding filters like you normally would. So looking for like person, where are we? Oh, this is family stuff. This is family, so it's really going to be on our family record, and opt out of mailings equals yes. That will automatically exclude those people from coming up, or those records from coming up when you're sending a bulk email. And then other things, the last thing that's here is this login message. I'm trying to think, once I get into it, it will recall. This is not helping me. I think the login message, I think this is the login message for this here, for the public forms. Actually, this is not. This is actually on your homepage. It puts a little box underneath. Y'all will actually have to help me because I think everybody here has that. But David, that's correct, right? If you add a message here, like Nightlight has their values. Some agencies have confidentiality statements. You get to add a message so that all users that log into your site would say that here. But of course, it's not doing it. So I will check on that. I'm sorry, I don't really recall. Let me see if it's here. If it's here, I don't see it showing up for either. I think I did it right, but I don't see it set up here. David, I think All God's Children has that set up. Do you guys?
We did. We changed our logo. We added some stuff down there that I
Did you add it in that spot that I was just in though?
I don't recall where I added it.
I don't either. Liana, do you know? Now I'm confused, but it didn't do what I wanted it to. So
I know ours, I think, shows up. Dan manages that, but I think it shows up when the person logs in. I don't know if it's on the clients. I don't think it is.
Right, like you don't think it's the end users that are this is the message for your login screen. Yeah. And there could be something, just because this is on our QA site and it's a test site and stuff, that for some reason this doesn't do it. But I do believe this is actually for your user login screen, where again, people will definitely put values, mission statements, confidentiality statements, information that a user needs to know or that you want your users to know. You could certainly play with it every day. Like we have our messaging up here at the top, but you could have messaging, you know, welcoming your teammates into the day or whatever, or the week. So it's kind of up to you how you want to do that. Those are things that a SAM lead can do. I was talking about other, what I would consider like a system report in the security center. Oh, it was the policies around MFA. So that is actually in the security center. Anything that deals with security, security at all, we've got put into this security center. The policy settings can be done under forms, security settings. Pop in here. And this allows you to set if what your session timeout is. So in our site, we don't ever want it to. This is probably not appropriate. 30 minutes. I'm trying to remember on the spot what is the HIPAA requirement. 30 minutes is kind of your standard. You could make it really short. It's just like any of these security settings. It's a balance that you're going to have to strike between very secure and convenience. So I can't remember what our default is. It's either at 15 or 30 minutes. You get to choose, but it should have some sort of a log outs. I'm going to set that for 30. You get to determine if you want to allow users to register for MFA. Just so you know, my team will never have even if you enable registering devices on your site, my team will always click and double check the MFA to verify before we actually access your site. But you can set this up for your users, which will help in the convenience factor, right? It's a little less secure, but your users get in and get the information they need. So it's just a balance that you'll strike. If you set it to yes, you'll also want to set the number of days before they have to put in their MFA again. We need to control this somewhat, so it's not an endless number of like, never is this going to happen. You've got 1, 7, or 30 days before they need to log in, register, and that's getting that MFA email, getting the code, and putting it back in before SAM lets you in. If the user has registered their device, they, you know, after a day, they'll have to do it again. After 7 days, whatever, they will need to log in again. I believe this is per device. So if somebody uses their mobile phone and uses a laptop, you're going to have to do it on both, because Sam will be able to tell with, I think, the IP address, how that functions. It's getting a little bit more technical for me, but I'm pretty sure that's what the rules are. Any questions on that? Because this is fairly new just for you guys. I mean, I know we sent out an email when this all came out to like, hey, you can set this up, but it goes away after a while, just remembering what's all these options. Everything good there? Okay. The other things that are your roles are implementing your programs into SAM. So SAM is set up by default with basic just tracking. It really is just a tracking device for, here are our families, here are our children, here are our adoptions or our placements. You can store different documents, add communications or case notes in. That's it. But it won't be specific to your agency until you customize it. So knowing what tools are at your disposal and how to consider them for your teams, that's your role, which is fun and quite a bit of responsibility, because what I see with agencies is the SAM lead role is a lot of times given to the most technical staff member. And maybe that staff member is a social worker by trade, or I've seen it being given to interns or the office manager. And yes, you can use software platforms maybe better than the rest of your team. but it can be a loaded responsibility. I don't know if anybody feels that way here. Like, there's a lot to learn in the system. So just want to make sure that you understand what tools are at your disposal. So we're going to like fast kind of iterate them, and then we'll get on to other topics too. Auto actions. This is used to automate things. Mostly I see people sending emails. Something is expiring. You want to notify somebody of something. Sending emails out on your team's behalf. Auto actions are your go-to for that. But I think auto actions can be somewhat underutilized for helping your team update data. So what I mean by that is maybe updating the case stage when a certain date field is entered, or updating a date field when you have assigned a role. So a lot of times, like in a home study process, the assignment of that home study work to the social worker is a starting date point to how long the state wants that process to take. And so you have to, I've seen people where there's like, you have to get it done in 90 days. Otherwise they don't get funding for that, or it falls outside, it just becomes an outlier. And so being able to track that. So the user would have to say, hey, Liana is the social worker assigned to this home study, and put in the assigned date. But maybe we could set up an auto action to say, I'm going to assign Liana. When Liana gets assigned, one, she could get an email sent to her. Two, the date that starts the ticking could be entered as the current date, so that your teammate doesn't have to do 2 data entry points. So looking for ways to eliminate some of your team members' data entry is really helpful with auto actions. It's also an action type of inserting records or pre-fill groups, where I know Liana does this with maybe when a home study is started, maybe even when the home study writer is, or the social worker is assigned that home study, training schedules are pushed in, right? So it's like, here's these 20 trainings that need to get done, or here's the fee schedule that needs to go out. So when we are actually adding new records, not just updating existing records, but adding new records in, that's a cool use of auto actions. Setting expiration dates. So again, any little keystrokes you can take off of your team will assist, and it helps with data integrity, because it there's a machine is doing the work for you, but it also ensures that action is being done. So auto actions, very useful. I know people have all number of different auto actions in their site. But yeah, that's kind of high level on this. Bulk emails, when you click into here, is going to just show you a history of all of the bulk emails you've either completed or have scheduled. Gives a high level status, when it was done, time, how many emails were sent, who set up the bulk email. You can access the details page, which is going to give you even more detailed information to this very specific bulk email, like what the message is, what report, and what template did it originate from. So these are all links here that'll get you to that more detailed information. Bulk emails are initiated from reports and generally some subsect of your records. With bulk emails, SAM is not an email marketing platform. There's just rules around having the unsubscribe message and how often the email cadence goes out that SAM's just not set up to control. So if you are sending solicitations, that's better done through an email marketing platform that can help ensure those rules are followed, so that your emails and your email domain, I think is the right technical term, does not start to be considered spam. So that is super important for you to be able to get your message out. It's to not look like spam. SAM is just not set up for that. So SAM for bulk emails would be like, you've got a group of families, 20, 50 families that need to get some information on a waiting child, or they need to have new program information related to them. That's what SAM's bulk email is really intended to be for. Checklists. Checklists are a workflow. They are your workflow. When you pop in here, you're going to see all the different entity types that your agency has enabled in your site. So it could include some subset of these, and I've seen agencies have like 20 different entities in their system. So it'll give you a list of all of these entity types. When you click into them, it'll give you the configuration screen that shows what your workflow process is. This is where you are customizing the system. So this is your specific workflow. SAM by default, there is no workflow. Again, it is like just tracking data about your families or children and connecting them. This is what establishes when somebody inquires, you want your teammates to do A, B, C, D, E. And you get to set up by adding items, editing the order, and then this is just a link to if you implement the public checklist for the family, a way that you can get to that form to add other subforms or manage the messaging on that. That's actually new in this version of SAM, getting you back and forth between the form and the case checklist. Don't know if you guys have actually seen that. We don't always market the things that make it easier to get around, but I at least am conscious of that because I want to make it easier on me as well as you. So just so you know, I don't know if Leanna, because I know you're in checklists a lot, if you've noticed that connection where you can get back and forth. Let's see. I've talked about 3. We got plenty more to go over. Any questions on this part? Is it helpful for me to share kind of what the purpose of these tools are? Finding that helpful? I think you guys may all know this stuff, but just in case you don't, sometimes people are new to the SAM lead role and didn't know that these things are even possible. So we'll keep plugging through here. Events allows you to intake simple registrations. So I think this was intended for your parent trainings. I would point to Liana. I think your team is extended how events is used in ways that was never the intent. I think you guys use this around donors sometimes too for registering for events. It may be, again, too simple for that type of coordination that goes into a major gala or a golfing event. So you may have pulled back from that. But I think for the most part, people use it for some of their simple video registrations, picnics. Events tend to be one entity specific. So this is a birth mom meetup group, or this is a family picnic. In the case where it might be a picnic that anybody, any client you've ever had could just come. So it could be adult adoptees, it could be youth that are still placed, it could be families, it could be placing or expectant parents that kind of come in and meet your community. You cannot offer registrations to all of those people. That's just a limitation of the system, but you are able, when you go to the detail for an event, to add event attendees from various entity types. So like for a picnic or something like that, where again, everybody, you're having just a community day, that's how you could go to pull that, all the different records in. But all those different records, there's only one spot for a form. and that form is based on one entity type. So that's where there's a limitation in this. Now, anybody who actually shows up as a participant shows in here. It is possible to pull, if you use this function, events onto your client record so that you could see this is a family and, oh, they've actually registered for this many training events, or they came to our picnic last year, or whatever as well. So you can see that information. Forms, it's a big one. Forms are every screen basically that you are interacting with in SAM is a form. Some screens, some of the setting screens are set up by our team, but all of the customizable forms, everything that's listed here, which I've got quite a small cursor or a scroll bar here. So I've got a lot of forms in this site. Some agencies, their scroll bar is really minuscule. Liana, that's you. You guys have gobs and gobs of forms that you manage. And so really just want to say a couple things about that. There is a general setup, but you may not like that setup. And your team may not like that setup. There may be things on the forms that you no longer use, or you don't like how it's laid out. Some of that administrative stuff is really, it falls on you once you start using the site. We're always happy to assist you, but those forms become things that, it's like your house. How do you want to decorate your house is what I could really liken it to. I'm gonna go to like a person form. Me and Kelly specifically unset a setting so that we could see this together, this add form. And where I was even on earlier is, right, even little things about the organization can make the form feel messy or difficult to do data entry. We've talked about it internally in our team of how can we improve the layout of these checkbox lists. This seems to be the real stickler is checkbox lists. I think radio button lists only line up in one row, so they will, for the most part, look pretty nice. But checkbox lists allow you to go into multiple columns, which then, because the list item is an unknown factor, right, in our system, we have no way of optimizing how this looks for you because people have very short list items, and I've seen literally sentences written in here as well, depending on where that checkbox list field is used. So simple things that you can do is when you go to that form and form customizer, organizing a field better, like simple layout things, or reorganizing the form can make a really big impact. Some of those calls we did last week around getting feedback on the new interface that we got from a particular agency, repetitive conversation on some forms. And when we looked at those forms as a group, it was messy. It was hard to actually do the data entry. So I've actually clicked into the field property screen to do a layout setting, changing it from 3 columns, which might have looked nice in the old version, to 1 column. It's going to make this page more legible. So we don't have like, which is this for the church pastor, or is this for the contact? When I refresh the screen, it's going to be lined up. It's going to make the form a little bit longer in its view, but the data entry is much clearer for your team. And really simple things of changing, certainly checkbox lists. I think that's the biggest kicker, where it's like, because we're offering the potential to put a really long list item in there, there's no optimization that we really have the potential to do on it. So managing how it looks is great. This is a 2-column layout. Sometimes, let me show one other layout because I don't really want to focus too much on forms, but making sure you can see the difference is these background checks have a horizontal layout, and literally changing it from 2-column to 1 column or horizontal to vertical will make the form be easier on your team. So this isn't my favorite layout anymore. I understand why people are like this, because it puts a lot of information all in one section. But to me, this is it's crowded. It feels crowded. It feels a little hard to see the data sometimes. I wouldn't really do this or leave it like this when I change this. But if I go to Form Customizer and click on the form properties, I can set it from being horizontal to vertical, and it will, oh, I need to do it over here. It will change the layout. So I'm going to advanced form properties instead to get back to the horizontal. We have big goals for making Form Customizer better. So there will be more coming up with reorganizing it constantly. This is going to set it up into a different section for each of these rows. So it's going to be too many. Goodness, did it do it? It didn't even do what I wanted it to do. Never loved that. There we go. What did it? I'll Shift R. Is it a different screen? Sure is that. Oh, here's the Form Customizer view of it where you can see it's set them into different things. It doesn't know what you want to label them, so you'd have to change those labels. But if you were looking at something, it makes the form longer. Totally agree, but it puts everything very clearly into designated areas. So it's just a different layout choice that might make things easier for your users. Because that we see with this new implementation or the new interface is sometimes the way your forms looked. They looked fine before. They don't look so fine in this version. The last thing on Form Customizer is just making sure if you have none of these links have sidebar, but sidebars, the administration of that, Liana, is coming up. I've gone through. It's fixed. There were some things we used to be able to set if it was in the top or back or in the advanced options or in different areas. Now that's just simplified. That was still lingering in the site. So it's now been resolved in the next release that'll come up in the next week or two. You'll be able to reorder sidebar with ease. Okay. That's what I'll go with that. Any questions on forms or just getting those set up? I mean, all of April was about Form Customizer and building forms. So we've got 3 hours of talks on those, but any kind of questions of just those simple things that might help. And I wish it had actually displayed it so we saw it, but these live calls always kind of get me on one thing or another. Lists are how you manage drop-down lists. There are hundreds of lists, right? So there are literally lists of all kinds of things. This list screen gives you the list. You can click on the list title or the table title of the list to access the list and the list items. This gives you a link to the fields using that list. So you can see like this particular list has, I would assume it says active and inactive. Just because we named it that does not necessarily mean those are the list items within it. These two fields though are both using that. The lists are here for you to get to so that you can see it. That's one way of getting to them. More often though, I'm gonna go from the field property screen, which you can access many different ways from the Form Customizer, from an edit, when you're editing a single value and you go under the little radio button. Let me go to my person record. You go to, it's not a radio button. It's got a little drop down on it right here. So this little arrow, this is new. Instead of having a lot of little small links displayed like we did in the old version, they're under this accordion getting to the field properties screen will allow you to get to the list if that field is a list. This is generally how I will get to a list, because the list name can be just made up. It could be XYZ, which isn't going to be reflective of what you need. How to find it. But then you manage the items in the list. The meatball menu on the side gives you all the little details of what to do. Once you have a list that's active and been used, if any of your records, for an example, are set as case manager, you can no longer delete that list item, but you would disable. Okay, so you still, disable is gonna say, keep all of our records with that data value point, but I don't want to offer it to my users any longer. Lists have a lot of functionality and a lot of ways that you can start customizing them. Clean up things, merging list items. If your list is starting to get document-wise 300, I literally have an agency that has over almost 2,000 document types, but what you can see is a lot of duplication. Merging list items is great. It cleans them up, brings two into one, and you just repeat it as many times so that the birth certificate is just called the birth certificate. That you don't need to have lots of different ways of describing or having lots of different values for that. It can kind of pull everything together. There is this other option, the two options. You can enable show list items for public forms. So it'll say, I think it gives a different attribute on the list that says, should this be shown on any public form? So like, you might have, how do people use that? Like, let's just say it was a referral source and you want to offer 3 or 4 main things to a family to put in a referral source. So you're making that form easier for them to use. But internally, if they put another agency or we were referred by a friend, you might actually specify who that person is or put more detail. This is an actual agency client, or this was an agency partnership situation, something like that, once you develop more information. But you don't need to give all those details off to the end user entering the data on that form. So that's useful. Some agencies have, for example, created many forms based off child communications. So because they have different programs, they have different prompts for each program for what they want their users to enter. And I think it's the communication topic type list just got really, really long, or they were creating list items or would say program A dash value A, program A dash value B, then program B value A. And it, again, the list just became really long. So if you have different forms, you do have the ability to choose show list items per form. It sets it by default as all the forms, but then you can pop in and edit this and say, I don't want it to be assistant executive director shown on every form. I only want to show it when we are adding persons, because if we're adding a board member, that doesn't maybe make sense. Okay, so you get to choose. While this is neat and super customizable, it makes your work and role as a SAM lead a little more detail oriented. If you add new list items, you need to set this up. There's no default. SAM doesn't know what it's going to be. So you would have to choose this every time. And then you may have users being like, I don't see what I need. So, you know, it requires more administration, but it can also give you exactly what you're looking for. So it's a balance that you'll just strike with that. Outcomes. underused. It really, this very moment, it only works on one assessment on child records. I don't remember when it was implemented. So like, let's say it was like 10 years ago. If All God's Children has been using SAM for 12 or 15 years, you're not going to have that assessment form in there. If you wanted it, we can put it in, things like that. I don't remember what national assessment it is, because I know it is like a standard assessment. It only works with that. We have it, and this is sort of the administration. So I'm going to kind of skip right over that because it doesn't work with everything in any way the way that we intend until we hear more people say, yeah, I really want to get using that. What it is intended to do is calculate the difference between two intervals. If, this assessment is done when a child is at intake and then done at discharge, did the values increase so we could tell our programs providing the outcomes we're hoping that they do. And it'll give you a change in those values. But again, it only works on one assessment right now that you'd want to implement that specific assessment into your team. The PAR due date schedule allows you to set up a very specific post-adoption report schedule once a triggering field is updated on an adoption record. You're only provided with these 3 dates. I think in some agency sites it's adoption finalized date. You can change the field title to something else, but you're only giving these 3. You get to determine what is the interval. Generally, it's in months. I don't even know that I've seen any ever in weeks. You get to determine how many reports. Is it 3? Is it 5? However many your agency is required to do for where the child is originating. That's what this is based off of. So this is children adopted from Costa Rica. In this example, you get to set then 3 different date fields that help push out or have the potential to help push out reminders. When I set them up, I'm generally starting at the due in country. So when do you have to get that report turned into the governing body? I'll start there and then I'll back up a month, or if I used weeks to give some time to get the information you need or schedule time with the family, have enough time for your team to write and polish the report and then get it sent off to the country. There's a final setting here where you could set up till the child is at a certain age, and you get certain options to say, till the child is 18 years old, whatever. After these first 6, then we're going to do an annual every 12 months. We're going to do a new post-adoption report. This works for a lot of situations. It doesn't work for every situation, depending on your agency or your state or your country's rules. An auto action to insert these records may be a better fit if you have very specific needs of what your triggering field is. But that is an option for you that I don't know that everybody knows exists. Pre-fill groups allows you to set up lots of different items. So this would be like a fee schedule. We're going to send when we introduce the home study to a family, we're going to send them the home study fee and maybe the first adoption payment fee. And maybe you also send some kind of mileage fee. So it would push 3 fees in at one time. If the agent or the family is in the international program versus a domestic program, you can separate that out, especially since I'm talking to agencies that do both, right? You could have international fees. This is like just examples of these are the fees for China, or these are the fees for our post-placement doesn't matter. Once you pop into these, you will then set what fees do you want to apply when you push this out. And so it would give, in this case, 6 different account receivable records with these very specific fees listed. This is only inputting the fee type. It is not also going to input the fee amounts or the due dates or any other data points. It's literally just this. Although, again, like Leon, I think you guys use this. And if you do fees, because there's a setting on fees, if you do this and the application fee goes in, does it put in your default fee? Do you know? I don't.
Yeah, I think you can assign to each of these items a default fee amount. Yeah.
Yeah, you do that in the list on the fee, but I wondered if when you push out a pre-fill group, does it push that fee into? I don't know. You
It
think it
does
does?
for us, yeah.
Yeah, and it could be depending on how you have it set up. So I would check with that for sure. But you guys use it a lot, right, Liana? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
it's
do.
super useful when, especially when you have a lot of programs to push out lists. Reports are here. I'm going to save reports to the end because we're at the end. Y'all, again, and Sam is so big. Surveys, you can send out surveys to people. Tables and fields is the table structure. It is the organization. I would say the 90% of the organization of hierarchy of table structure. It allows you to jump into a specific table to look at the fields and do management on this. As we move forward with Sam, we're going to be doing more and more off this table properties screen, showing, because it already shows subtables, sibling tables. Oh, what is this? This is templates it's used on, forms it's used on. We're really going to use, this is a lot, and then we'll put them all in accordions so that we can consolidate this stuff and you can open and close and see the values that you need. But more and more, we're pushing things through the table. There is a new organization coming up where you can add fields, create new forms, create the current latest table. So you've got some options here, and certainly there are things under advanced options, but things to do. One thing that I do want to say about reports is reports really are a role and responsibility for a SAM lead. SAM is set up to, again, just basic tracking of your data. So you could have a report that will have 0 filters on it, and any data you've input for a family, let's say it's built off a family, is going to display there, right? Any of the columns that you've chosen, it's going to show you every single family. By and large, that's not going to be that helpful to you, right? It's just too much data. I would venture to say there's agencies with tens of thousands of family records, if not over 100,000 family records and donor records and things like that in sites. So that's not that helpful. Generally, you put filters on a report to narrow into a specific subset of families that you were active in a time period, or people in a particular program or a particular stage, all kinds of ways that you can subsect your data. As a SAM lead, that's your responsibility, because we can totally assist and help, but there's no way that we don't know your records, right? We can help talk about your records, but we did not generally do the data entry of the record. We don't manage the record. So we won't really, and we don't have any relationship with those records. So we won't know if you're missing records or you have too many records. Auditing your report and playing with the configurations of your filters on reports to pull a proper subset is a role and responsibility of a SAM lead. The other thing with reports where people get are uncertain about how the data is showing is if you have multiple multi-record tables on there. So if you had a report where you're pulling on communications and adoption fees, SAM doesn't know which communication goes with which fee. So it can look like there's duplicative data, but that's because it doesn't know that communication goes with the adoption fees that are added to that record. So there will be replication. So narrowing your report down to very specific tables that you for the information you're trying to pull is really important to do when you're building reports. Last thing here is the templates. Templates are for your professional messaging or prints, emails that go out of SAM on behalf of your team. You're creating a template, you're assigning it to an auto action, push it out. Your team can also use templates on a record. Where's my guy here? With reports, the couple of things that I want to make sure you know is under advanced options, there's modification reports, activity tracking reports. Modifications is pretty much every action that I take in the site as I'm updating data or deleting data or changing data is going to be tracked. So all users get tracked. Activity tracking is I logged in, I moved to the home page, I moved to the settings page. That will help display some information too for your audits of who's logging in. That's useful for security as well. Auto action history. This is all auto actions that have gone off for this particular record. And then the email history is narrowed down to those emails and the settings around emails. So report of all the emails that have gone out on behalf of your agency to this record or in relation to this record, right? So if an email goes out to a staff member on behalf of this agency or this record, that will be tracked in here as well. This is helpful for you guys to know how to manipulate. I'm wishing my cursor was down here too, because there's a couple other fields here. Pop back up. The date that this email got entered or got sent out, or actually this may be the entered date of the auto action, the history record. If it was canceled or a sending error, looking for that is helpful. Because if you're like, this family didn't get this message, check to see if there's a sending error. A sending error is going to say, hey, you need to check on who is that being sent from? Is there any problem with that email connection going on? Things like that. And canceled being yes, I think these things are all filterable. That's going to say our auto action said we needed to confirm it, but we said, no, I'm not going to send that right now. So you can see another way of if a message didn't actually get out, was it canceled? I don't know if there's a column here that will tell you who did that or not. I'm not totally sure. If you've got a host of auto actions that you ask for people to confirm before sending, when you have emails that should have been confirmed but didn't go out, there will be a report link up here that'll show you here's the email, who it's supposed to go to, what it says. Do you want to confirm, cancel, or like confirm and send or cancel this email? And you can do that from a report as well. So it is a way that you can manage those. And the auto action schedule that's here will show you auto actions that are intended to come up over time, over the next couple of days or whatever. It shows your next scheduled runtime of what's supposed to happen based on your scheduling. So those are reports that you can use as well. The last thing that I wanted to leave you with, I know we're over, so I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, is just how to get support. Our role here is to help support you as SAM leads. You can kind of think of us as a contracted database administrator. I can really only speak for myself, is that most of the time I've done a lot of setup with people so I can talk with you about your program specifically. My team though can as well, because SAM's tools will help. But think of us like that, like we are supporting you to keep moving forward without being your full-time staff member. Generally, you are the middleman between your users and our support team. People do that for costs to keep costs low so that their SAM leads can manage that. Some people don't care either way. Right now, we don't have support as being filtered to if you're a user or a full administrator. So everybody can see this. We're going to respond to all tickets. So you might want to communicate with your team if you prefer things to go through your SAM leads. But everybody can access help guides, which are always free. We're constantly updating them. Any kind of questions that come in, we typically are like, does our support guide answer this? If not, let's go and make sure that that's clear. So they are updated literally weekly with either videos or better clarity in the communication that we're giving. You can certainly create a ticket. If your tickets come in and we deem them as like, hey, we're just going to point you in the direction of help to do this, no charge for that. If we deem it as some kind of bug or incident in the software, no charge for that. If we're starting to log in and customize your site, it's a professional service fee. And we have just automated so that you're aware if we log it as build time and how much do we log for that, so that you have that information. You're not surprised when the invoice comes in. And then you can always schedule a call as well. Those are just options for your support besides just coming to SAM Talks calls. And then with that, I think what we're going to do is change them up again because we get feedback and we're looking for things to be like equal and fair for everybody, and to make sure, my goal is for sure that you're supported. You guys do good work and we want to help you in that endeavor. So starting in June, we're going to have drop from 3 calls to 2 calls. 1 call, top of the month, will be bring your questions, just like we used to do for the last 3 years or so. Bring your questions, 1 or 2 questions. Let's try and move the things that you're actively doing in your site forward so you can accomplish that and move on. And then our second call, third Wednesday of the month, will be a topic. So it'll be like this. I think what we're going to do is make them a little bit shorter. I'm positive y'all aren't really super interested in listening to me for 70 minutes talk about some topic, but about 30 minutes we'd like to like introduce topic, kind of a more bite-sized chunk, and then let's build it. Let's do the things. So if we're setting up an auto action or setting up reports, literally go in and try and move your team forward again. So I think that gives a good balance between our team's efforts on SAM Talks and how much prep work we need to do, and also moving you guys forward, getting you some support to get you the help you need to be successful without struggling, because there are tons of options in SAM, and give some information that we can use in content and give everybody a basic understanding of whatever that topic is. Now at 70 minutes, I'm good and done. So I hope you guys join for SAM Talks next week. Or next month, we will send out the regular email at the top of the month, kind of letting you know what the schedule is. You'll be able to find it on our website under events. And if you have any feedback or you want to share any ideas for what to talk about, let us know. I mean, I think we could talk about reports and auto actions and checklists every day, all day long, because there's just so much you could do. But if you have certain things you want to know more about, we are open ears in trying to understand what you need to serve your serve all of our communities better. And now I really hit the 70-minute mark, so I am through. Do y'all have any questions or anything that you would like to share?
I did have one little question.
Yes.
So we usually, before any tickets are submitted to you guys, we do have staff complete an internal Microsoft form so that we can look at what their request is. And I'm curious, is there a way somewhere in SAM, maybe on the person's homepage when they log in, that we can, excuse me, add like a link to this form? Because right now we just instruct people to save it on their browser, like as a favorite, but a lot of people don't understand how to do that. So I don't know if that's could be an option, if that's something
Okay.
simple to do, but
So two things I've got for you on that is, one, yes, as a sidebar, you can put in a sidebar link to anything. That should get you to that form. Not the answered form, I wouldn't think, but the form that you've opened up, just the blank Google form. Second option is there are at least two agencies, three. There are three agencies that have that kind of what I assume your Google form looks like as table, a new table in SAM. So they are literally submitting requests about SAM in SAM. And those like might go to you, for example, as your SAM lead. So they've got it's set up, you know, what's the date of the request, who's asking the request, give me a whatever the topic is, and what is your description of it, follow-ups if needed. Did we talk to the SAM support team? Whatever kind of tracking. It's Liana, it's like building any other table in the site, a multi-record table. I think I've seen some people put it under the organization tab. Some people put it under the person tab. So the user will go to their own person record and click something that says add support request.
okay.
Yeah.
Good ideas. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because then you can use all the rest of the tools, right? I don't know what's available with a Google form, but auto actions, templates, reports of all of that, of what you got done or didn't get done or else, whatever. Still, just like you do. I'm
Okay.
surprised Nightlight's not one.
Well, yeah, I have, it's Microsoft Forms, and I actually have Power Automate set up so it transfer everything automatically to a spreadsheet for me.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have to see how that works, because that spreadsheet is really important as well.
Yeah, sure it is. Yeah, no, I know the couple of agencies there, they use it all the time because people ask for things or don't know, which are like thinking this call is important to just reiterate what is y'all's roles and do you know everything you can do. But yeah, if you want, I mean, if you want to keep the Microsoft Forms, that's totally fine. You don't have to build everything into SAM, and you can link the sidebar.
Yeah, okay.
Anything. It should, you know, as long as I don't know what rules are around that Microsoft form. So there might be something with that, but it should work, I would think.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. David, you got anything?
I was just gonna say I looked at our login messaging because nothing is appearing on our screen anymore, but it's still in the setup there. So some connection got lost in some upgrade probably.
It did. That's weird because, right, Liana, your site has it, right? No, your site doesn't have anymore. Okay, I'll put in a development ticket for that because yes, I'm pretty sure that login message that we looked at under the system configuration is that message for the front page. And so let my development team know.
Cool.
Kelly, do you have anything? Were you thinking anything?
I thought that was something different.
It might. Well, you and me can play with it and figure out what that means. Pam, you got anything? We just talked on, did we talk on Monday or Friday?
It's someday this week. I don't know. Yeah. No, it's all good. This is all good. So we're good.
Okay. Y'all have any ideas for topics? Do y'all want to hear anything specific? Because I know this is our group that comes a lot. Are you missing anything or?
I have one thing that it's a bad topic personally, but it's cleanup and cleanup suggestions, like reports. It would be nice if there was a report of like what report hasn't been open in forever, but if you open a report, then it's been opened recently. So I don't know if that could exist.
Exactly. But yeah, it starts to go away of being effective. Right. We don't have any. We had set up a custom query at one point to do that and push a whole bunch of push reports into your site, but then again, if you open them, that they start pulling off the report. So it was only helpful at a one-time situation where we ended up removing them out. We do have a development ticket around, it's on me to find all these system reports, make sure they're all set up. We'll start to change the actual URL of like the auto actions so that we control them, so that we ensure everybody is looking at the same thing all the time. We're looking for ways to organize that. So I've got that now top of mind as far as a report of reports that haven't been accessed. We should be able to put that in as a query. Of course, it'll be dynamic, right? So it'll change, but maybe a report that hasn't been accessed in, I don't know what's appropriate, 3 months, 6 months. You never open the report, then it would show up so you guys could say, don't I want that? What do you think, Liana, for cleaning up reports? I mean, you guys got lots and lots and lots of stuff. Do you do that periodically?
Periodically. I haven't done that in a long time personally, but what I have done is cleaned up the My Tasks menu for a few of our staff that haven't been on top of it. So they just had stuff from like a few years ago that's like no longer relevant. So I created reports so that I can bulk update those as completed and get them off their My Task menu.
Yeah. There are some of those My Tasks too. Like I think when you build in the configuration, you can choose whether or not you're showing it on My Task. Because right, like sometimes you might want to just have the literal things that cannot be missed on My Task. And the fact that they're even seeing that will push the worker towards the checklist itself to see other things they're supposed to be doing. I don't know, right? Again, there's like a balance of how much, because I think like David, your team, what is your term? They live and die by My Task.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like they don't ever go into the checklist, which we will talk about checklists. Our goal, Ryan wants to shift our goal, but is to put a release out kind of beginning of June, so that this next Sam Talks, we'll talk about some of the checklist features that we're going to roll out. We're working on ways to make it easier to see overdue, things that are responsible. Like Liana, this would be helpful for you guys when you have 20 people that are responsible for various things on a checklist. I just want to see things that I'm responsible for when you're on a client record. Not everybody's stuff, so you don't have to like search the whole long list, that it'll narrow it down, the results. So there's a couple of different ways that we're gonna put things, some visualization into checklists to make it easier in the coming month. Plus, Liana, you can let your team know that the reports printing is done. It's not today. It's you've got to get that release.
Oh.
So excited. It's coming. It's totally coming. So
Awesome.
All right, y'all. It is always a pleasure to see your faces. Thank you for coming. You'll see our new calendar come out with June schedule out there. Send us any feedback. We're open ears, and have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye. See y'all later.
Bye.
Me? She's not paying it. Oop, there she is. And then I'm going to stop.